In this video, we will show you how to replace your rear brake center flex hose on this Ford F-150. You'll have two of these, and they're both located on the driver's side of your differential tube leading up to your frame. Let's get into it. Safely raise and support the rear of your vehicle. We're going to remove the rear wheel by removing all 6 of our 21mm lug nuts. Let's pay attention to the caliper directly at that bleeder screw. We need to make sure this opens. Most times your bleeder screw will have a rubber cover on it. Just go ahead and pull that up and off of there. Just going to break it free. Set that aside. We will be reusing it. We'll be using an 11mm for our bleeder screw. Let's get some penetrant on there. You want to make sure you can see a steady trickle of fluid coming out of the bleeder screw. That confirms that the bleeder screw is in good usable order. We'll go ahead and close this off. Once you have the bleeder screw broken free and you're sure there is fluid making its way out, we're going to have to open this one more time. When doing so, you also want to make your way up to the passenger compartment with a pry bar or a rod of some sort, and we need to press that brake pedal all the way down to the floor and hold it there while we continue on throughout the entire replacement process. Now we have our collection receptacle under here. Before we start removing our brake flex hose, it's important to note you want to follow the brake line all the way over to your rear brake caliper and open up the bleeder screw, confirming that the bleeder screw functions as it should. Now after confirming that, we're over on the driver's side of the differential tube here. We'll be paying attention to where the steel line goes into our flex hose. Use a 13mm to start loosening this. Keep in mind there will be brake fluid in this area. Have a collection receptacle under here so you can recycle it. Now once you have your brake line disconnected, you need to give it a thorough inspection, especially at that fitting. If it looks like it's rotted and damaged, you want to go ahead and replace it. This one looks fine. Let's continue on. Now let's move to where the flex hose connects onto the bracket. For this, we're going to take hold of this locking tab and gently pull it up and out of place. You can pry it or use some pliers if necessary. A quick inspection, make sure this is still in good usable order. We'll set that aside. Now you can go ahead and take hold of that flex hose, attempt to give it a wiggle, removing it from the bracket. If it does not move, lightly tap on this area, driving it out of position. Just be extremely careful not to cause any damage. There's that flex hose. Let's follow it upward now. You can see 2 plastic brackets. There's one here and one located just above it. Let's start pulling this out of the plastic bracket. It has 2 locking ears, one here and one just on the other side. Typically you can go ahead and spread those ears and pull that up and out of position. As for the first one, we'll have that removed. The next one up, leave that in place as we continue all the way up to the top mounting point. Up along the top here, you can see where the brake line leads into the top of that flex hose. We'll start with our 13mm. We're going to loosen this, and then we'll move along to our locking clip. After dislodging this, we can make our way back down to that plastic holder. Now we can remove that metal clip. Same process as before. Go ahead and take hold of it with some pliers if necessary. Just a quick inspection of that. That does look reusable. Remove that from the metal bracket and from the plastic bracket. There it is, friend. Before we continue on to installation, clean and inspect all mounting surfaces. All right, let's prepare to install our brand new flex hose. If you are looking at the flex hose on one end, you're going to have this rubber portion. That is on the lower portion of your brake flex hose. We'll start with the top. Now, as we bring this flex hose into position into the bracket, you may find that you have a hard time turning that fitting. The line is a coated line. We'll carefully start the line in with a wrench, being extremely careful not to cross thread it into the wrong positioning. Just gonna twist that line until it fits in flush here. While holding pressure, we can continue on to the line. We should be able to maneuver this around as necessary. Now I'm going to use my flare end wrench here to make sure this is nice and tight. Once it's bottomed out, you just want to take it a tiny bit further, just double checking to make sure it's properly secured here. Continue on with your locking clip. For that locking clip, we're going to take this and slide it straight up into position, making sure you have it in the proper orientation. Slide it right in there. You should find a groove on the flex hose for this to fit into. We'll lightly tap this into place. Double check, make sure the lock is properly secured and the flex hose will not fall out of position. Now we can start putting this into the plastic connectors here. Press it in. Double check, make sure it's secured as we make our way down to the next one. Line it up, press it in. Now we're making our way down to the bottom of the flex hose, where it connects into that bracket. Go ahead and align it. Make sure it's properly flush. Start in your fitting. Use our 13 millimeters, snug it up. Bottomed out. It's time for our metal clip, proper orientation, drive it into position. Double check, make sure everything's properly secured. The next thing we'll do is clean up our mess so we can confirm whether or not we have a leak once we've completed bleeding the brakes. The next thing we'll do is do a gravity bleed for our braking system. We'll make sure we have a collection receptacle under this area. Continue on with an 11 millimeter wrench. We're going to open up our bleeder screw and wait till we see a steady trickle of fluid making its way out. See a lot of air bubbles there. That's very common. We need to remove any air from in the system. Okay. At this point, I have a steady trickle of fluid making its way out. We'll go ahead and close up our bleeder screw. Wipe down the area. Now we've completed the gravity bleed. The next thing you want to do is make your way up into the passenger compartment and pump up the brake pedal till it feels firm. If for some reason you don't feel resistance or it feels as though the brake pedal sinks down towards the floor, you might still have air trapped in the system and you'd want to continue on with a manual brake bleed. If it does feel firm, go ahead and clean up your mess and reinstall your wheel. One last quick inspection in this area, we'll reinstall our wheel. Once you have all the lug nuts started on and bottomed out, we'll have the wheel back on the ground. Torque each one of your lug nuts to 150 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. Torqued. Okay friend, we finished our installation. The next thing that you need to do is go ahead and pump up the brake pedal one more time. We're going to double check for fluid leaks. After that, you can go ahead and close the hood and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Before we start removing anything up inside the engine compartment, you need to remove each one of your wheels and make your way to the caliper. On each caliper, you're going to find a bleeder screw. It needs to be opened. After you open it, go ahead and close it off. If it does not open or breaks, that's something that you need to take care of before you continue your process. Now that we're sure that all the bleeder screws open up on our brakes, we're underneath the hood at that master cylinder. We need to remove as much fluid from inside the master cylinder as possible and replace it with brand new .3 brake fluid up to the maximum so we can start our brake bleed. Now I have a fluid extractor here. I can remove the fluid. Get this up to that maximum line. Reinstall your brake fluid cap. Now it's time to bleed the brakes. We're starting at the right rear, passenger side rear. Once we're done at the right rear, we're going to go over and do the exact same thing over on the driver's side rear, and then we're going to make our way to the master cylinder to top it off. To bleed the brakes, it's going to be easiest with a second person. The second person will be up inside the vehicle and they're going to pump up the brake pedal for us. They'll pump it approximately 3 to 5 times until it starts to feel firm. Hold it, let me know, and I'm going to open up our bleeder screw. When we open this up, we're paying attention to fluid coming out and making sure we do not see any air bubbles. We'll have to repeat this process until you see only fluid and no air. We have our collection receptacle under here, hand and eye protection. Go ahead and pump up the brake pedal, please. Go ahead and pump. You can release the brake pedal. At this point, I have no air coming out of the system for several times bleeding here. We'll go over to the driver's side, repeat this same process after we've cleaned our mess and reinstalled our bleeder screw cover. Now we'll make our way back up to the master cylinder here on the driver's side. We're going to have to top it off. As you can tell, the fluid is a little low. We want to bring it up to the maximum. Now I'm over at the passenger side front after finishing bleeding the driver's side rear and stopping at the master cylinder to top it off. Let's go ahead and repeat our process here. Once we're done here, I'm going to go over to the driver's side front and repeat the process, and we'll make our way back to that master cylinder. Go ahead and pump the brake, please. Go ahead and pump. We'll go ahead and close up this bleeder screw, make sure it's nice and tight, clean up our mess. You can release the brake pedal, thank you. Now I'm going to go over to the driver's side, repeat this process. Let's get this up to that maximum line. Reinstall your brake fluid cap.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.